Hey, welcome back to Spellbound. It's me, BEEJ, and I finally have my setup back. So it's been a minute since you've seen me, and that is because several months ago at this point, I got a new phone. My mic doesn't fit into my phone because of my phone case. So I did like one vlog in the spring, I guess, during like a week of recovery after a surgery, and it was fine with me that like my video quality wasn't very good, and my mic quality was definitely not good because I didn't have a mic, and it was fine because I was like, this is just a silly little vlog, but I didn't want to do a video, like a proper video of a wrap up or a TBR until I had my setup with my chair, with my lights, with my sound, and so it feels like all is right in the world, and so I have some books to talk. So I have some books to talk about, I've got some ground to cover, and today's video is about the summer romances that I've read. All right, we're starting off really easy, really delightful here with An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This one has been recommended to me a lot over the years. It's been read and reviewed by readers and booktubers who read all different kinds of books and who don't necessarily gravitate towards romance, and they've all really enjoyed it. So that to me was a point in its favor, that it was, I won't say beloved, but it is liked and enjoyed by so many different types of readers. I read it, and it is about, I'll never remember the characters' names. That's something you just need to know and understand. So it's about this human girl. She's an artist and she has this gift of painting. And basically humans who have these amazing talents or gifts in the arts, they are sort of coveted by the Fae. The fairies will come and they will patron the artist because the Fae can appreciate the artistic talent so much, and they want to have pieces by them. She is an artist. She's incredibly talented, like the most talented artist in the realm. She's commissioned by this Fae prince to do a portrait of him, but she paints him having and displaying human emotions, and so that gets him in trouble back in fairy. Basically undermines his whole authority as like prince of the autumn court or whatever court he is, and so he's like, hey, artist, you done messed up, and so I'm gonna like spirit you back over to fairy and you have to stand trial. It is kind of delightful. It is relatively low stakes. It's not that the characters are never in peril, but the overall concept, like there's not the realms, the fairy courts aren't at war, there's not like torture, there's no violence, it's pretty low stakes. So I would say it is a very romantic book, like in the true sense of the word, and it's a very delightful book, and I enjoyed it quite a lot because it is also very, very atmospheric. If the prose was not as purple, and if the atmosphere was not as rich and moody, I don't think I would have enjoyed it for the plot alone, but I think the combination of the plot, of the chemistry between these two characters, this, mortal girl and the Fae prince, she calls Rook, and the moody atmosphere, I think those three combined really worked together to make this a really neat story. So I don't remember what I rated it. I think I rated it 4 out of 5. I liked it, 4 out of 5. I would recommend it, and I think that a lot of people and a lot of different types of readers are going to enjoy this book. Next, we've got Fan Service by Rosie Danan. Oh my gosh, I loved this. A spoiler, I loved this book, okay? It was so cute. Okay, so this book is about this massive fan, like huge fan, #1 fan for, let's say, this universe's equivalent of the Vampire Diaries. I've never seen the Vampire Diaries. In fact, I fear that I may start watching it, and just so that I can understand some cultural inside jokes with. So, never mind. My phone got overheated and just went. So, I finally had to bite the bullet and go and buy a real camera. But it's also nighttime now, so boo to that. I prefer it in this room when it's like daytime and pretty and Yeah. Okay, so where we left off, I was singing the praises of Rosie Danan, justifiably so. Okay, so I was telling you about this book. Let me get a little more comfortable. It's been a long day. Okay, it's been a long day. So this book is about this fan, this like super fan, if you will, of this universe's equivalent. I mean, it's in our universe, but like this fictional world's equivalent to the Vampire Diaries. But instead of being about vampires, it's about a werewolf. So the female main character was a super fan. She was absolutely obsessed with this show. So she ran the #1 fan site. She went to all the cons. She did all the cosplays. Like, she was just so into this show. And the guy, the main actor, he is a dick. You know, like, he is a jerk. And not only that, but he's a totally washed up jerk. So this was his like one-hit wonder. You know, he's not a good actor, and he's not in anything else. And he keeps trying to bring a reboot back to this show because it was where he felt the most purpose and where he felt that everything was right in his world. Now he's just this washed up actor that is the laughingstock of Hollywood. So he's just gotten fired by his agent, I guess, for once again trying to make fetch happen and trying to bring back this reboot. And his agent's like, we have to part ways. You have to move on, and I have to move on. So he's having a rough go of it. And then something weird happens. It's like a full moon outside that night, and everything's going wrong, and he's just like really worked up. And he just, in the middle of the street, just like something comes over him, and he just like howls at the moon, and he doesn't really know why or where that came from. But the tabloids got a hold of it, and they're like, dude, this is sad. You know, but like, it was exactly the same transformation as what happened on the show. Like, the way that he felt so overcome, you know, just came out of him. He does not know what's happening to him. He's having all these weird feelings, having all these weird physical symptoms. So he tries to find what he can only assume is the only person in the world who can help him. It starts Googling his symptoms and looking more into it. And he's absolutely baffled because all signs point to werewolf. Like, you know, what to do if you feel that you're turning into a werewolf. And so he doesn't know who to turn to. He doesn't know what's going on. All that he knows is that all the things are exactly matching up with what happened in the TV show. So he goes to a fan site, an old retired fan site, and tries to track down the OG fan, like the biggest fan from the fan site, to try to see like, hey, according to lore and legend, what's happening to me. So he reaches out to our female main character, and she's living her best life just as a vet assistant or a vet tech or something, and she thinks that it's a joke. She thinks that somebody's reaching out to her like to pull a little prank, and she's like in good spirits about it. So she's like, yeah, I'll meet up with this person, like whatever. In a coffee shop in a Dunkin', you know, she meets up with this actor, and she's like, what is actually happening? She agrees to help him try to figure out his symptoms. He believes that he only has until the next full moon to figure it out before something really crazy happens. That's the premise. It is absolutely bonkers and off the wall, and it is hysterical. This book had me rolling in laughter. Like, it was so funny. It was so cute. Their banter was fantastic. This is definitely a golden retriever, black cat energy kind of book, and it is absurd, but it was so funny, and it was so cute. And I recommended it to a couple of people. They both came back and like read it immediately, was like, okay, this book was hilarious. I don't think I've ever given a rom-com a 5-star, but definitely 4.5 stars at least. It was great. So highly recommend that as a summer rom-com. Okay, so the next one is Half a Soul, I believe by Olivia Atwater. I've seen this book recommended a lot. It was delightful. It is cozy. There is nothing wrong with this book. It was delightful. It is heartwarming. It's wholesome. It's lovely. It's just not for me because of those things. So I would absolutely recommend it. I'd recommend it to like my mom. I would recommend it to like my friends love cozy romance and cozy historical romance. How sweet. Yes. So nothing wrong with it. Cute premise. Yeah, now I'll tell you what the book is about. BEEJ. God. It's about a girl who was like cursed by a fairy when she was young, and she had her like soul kind of cut and basically like untethered from her body in a way. So because of that, she can't feel emotions fully. you know, so she is kind of flat affect and just kind of moves through things, and she doesn't feel them in her gut all the way. So it's her trying to get her soul together, and she has this like beautiful friendship in this book, a beautiful romance in this book. There is tension. It's not tensionless. It's just not incredibly high stakes. But it was delightful, and I would recommend it. And I think I rated it like 4 stars. Like, it was great. It was lovely, and it wasn't overly long, which I thought was great, especially when you have like, it's not just a romance, but it's a historical romance and there's fantasy on top of that. I think that because it was so layered in those ways, I think had it been any longer, it would have been like, okay, got it. But I think it was exactly as long as it needed to be, and it was well written and very well edited. Okay, so we're looking at The Fake Out, The Wingman, and Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. So let's start with The Wingman, which was the one that I read first. This is a hockey rom-com, and this one specifically is friends to lovers. So honestly, whenever I hear friends to lovers, I don't even know how else to describe the book, because like the premise is always secondary to like it's exactly what that means. It is friends to lovers. These two friends are friends, and they've been friends for a really long time, like all through college. And not only that, but this is her ex-boyfriend's best friend. So he kind of always had a thing for her, but immediately his best friend, who's kind of a jerk, gets together with her, and then they date all through college. And then even after college, he just kind of strings her along and never commits and never marries her. So she finally just breaks up with him. And then when she does, she has trouble like getting back on her feet and getting settled. He agrees to like help her get her groove back basically and be her wingman. That's kind of how that goes. Yeah, and it was cute, and it was fun. This was the only friends to lovers rom-com that I've ever actually enjoyed reading, and I would not recommend it, you know. And then I read like The Fake Out, I think, which was one of the earlier ones in this like collection, this universe or whatever, because it's not a series, it's just multiple that follow this one team, basically this one hockey team, and all of their lady friends. They all introduce this guy who's older on the team, and he's like on his way out of his career, right? The team's doctor, I guess. Anyway, they tee them up, I think, really well and set up this incredible enemies to lovers that has been building now in the background of these novels for 3 books. So Gloves Off is the 4th one in this set, and I think they've done a good job over the past several books of like I said, building that tension and introducing these characters who absolutely hate each other and giving them really great tension to work with. So in that way, I did really enjoy Gloves Off tremendously. I think that the tension is fantastic. I think it was fun to read. I actually recommended this to a friend of mine who plays hockey, and he actually read it and enjoyed it. So that was fun. Yeah, I do recommend Stephanie Archer in general, but as far as sports romances and as far as hockey romances go, Gloves Off was the best out of the set. The Wingman was a good second. Okay, so next is Hot Summer, and I don't remember who wrote this one, but it will be in one of the corners of the screen. But this one was actually a cute premise. This was about a girl who, a woman who works for, no, let me get this right, for like an events company. Not only that, but it's like a dating events. She and her company create opportunities for like local singles to mix and mingle. So it's a locals mixer event company. So she is offered this big promotion to run a new division of the company that incorporates social media and matchmaking into that, if she's able to go on this dating show basically as like an undercover, make herself very likable, and then leave with a lot of like partnerships, etc., that will help boost the awareness of this division of the company, which is ludicrous. Like, it's an absolutely insane premise, but they do. So it's very Love Island coded. It's very Too Hot to Handle coded. And she gets there and she immediately falls for another girl on the show. And so their romance is super cute. I enjoyed reading this. I think if I knew more about Love Island, it would have been more fun to read and to understand, but I'm not super familiar with it. I'm familiar enough that like I understand what a bombshell is, right? And when you get a message and the villas, like I understand like a working knowledge of it, but I think there was a lot of inside jokes and a lot of Love Island Easter eggs that went over my head. It was cute. It was a really, really well written sapphic romance. The characters were really compelling, but to that end, There were also a lot of characters because it's a dating show, but that doesn't mean that all of the characters other than our main characters were forgettable, because that's not true. She did have some really great and well-written and well-established characters, and then other characters just were clearly just supporting or background characters. It was a cute summer romance, and I do recommend it. It's just, I would recommend like getting that one from the library because it's fun to read, but you may not want like to keep it forever. Unless you're just like really looking for some really yummy sapphic romances. You know, those can be hard to find. And this one was that. The next two are Blackhearts and Black Souls. This is a duology, and this is by Nicole Casterman. First of all, full stop, I love a story about pirates. Second of all, this is a historical fiction about the fictionalized origin story of Edward Teach, Blackbeard, and Anne Bonny, and this puts them in a romance together. So fun to read. A historical romance fictionalized account of pirates, specifically Blackbeard. Take my money. So I like inhaled these two books. My one criticism of the first book is that it takes the majority of the book before they're even on a pirate ship, and that was like, I had an issue with that. There should have been more adventure and more swashbuckling in the first one. In its favor, Casterman does a really good job of the slow build, which is really fantastic, and especially in a historical romance, very necessary, but also of really building a rich, believable backstory that gives them an emotional depth that you're going to want to make some of the choices that they have to make sense. And I thought that was well done, you know? So while I wanted there to be more violence, death, gore, and adventure time on the high seas, it made a lot of story sense why there wasn't. That was nice. There was a lot of intrigue, a lot of drama. I think she also gave our characters a lot of depth. There was a lot of commentary on what was happening during this period of time. It's not all just like hee hee ha ha fun pirate times. Like, she gives it the historical context and the weight that you would want it to, with it being a historical romance. So it does feel real, it does feel grounded. There's a lot of like, the real villains of this story are not the pirates, it is the East India Trading Company, because they were, you know, trading humans. And it doesn't shy away from the gore and trauma of the transatlantic slave trade. And so I really appreciated that. It was really well done. I really liked it. So obviously I rated these very high because, as I said, these are pirate romances, pirate historical romances. So like, yes. And ultimately, we have The Darkness Within Us by Trisha Levenseller. So I always enjoy Trisha Levenseller's books. I really, really do. Daughter of the Pirate King is one of my favorite series of all time. I loved The Shadows Between Us. It's so much fun. I cannot wait to read her adult debut. She writes some of the best female protagonists just ever. The Shadows Between Us was so much fun to read. It was, you know, marketed as like a true Slytherin romance, and it totally was. Just a delightful time. So The Darkness Within Us, it follows the other sister from like that world, and so it completes the duology, and it's about this young woman. She has done everything that she can think of she's been very shrewd, and she's played the long game in terms of like power and not just asserting herself, but like acquiring power in this world that doesn't value women and doesn't give women autonomy. You know, she's had to find it in a different way. So she has basically manipulated everyone around her since a very young age into believing that she's stupid. And she, through doing so, a lot of people let down their guard around her and have free and open conversations around her. So she's known like her dad's plan, her father's plan for her whole life, and it was just to like marry her off. And so she's the one who like planted the idea in her father's head to like find some duke who was so old and close to death that she wouldn't have to do anything or put out or do anything, you know, that she didn't want to do. And then he would die and she would just, you know, inherit his estate. And then she marries the guy and he's just continuing to live on and won't die. And so finally he does die, and she's like, thank God I can stop pretending that I'm some idiot, and now I have all of the wealth and power and social capital of this estate, and I can just live in peace alone for the rest of my life. Then come to find out, the solicitor just happens to uncover some old son, either son or nephew, of the old duke. who did not know that he existed. But now that the Duke is dead, he's actually the sole heir to this dukedom, right? So now once again, after all this, she's at the whims and mercy of this person she believes to be a fraud because, you know, it's discovered by the solicitor who is already mad at her. But she's already taken off her mask and everyone knows that she's not an idiot now. So now she has to be like twice as shrewd to try to out him as a fraud, to just defraud her of her inheritance. So it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of like really well built out tension. It is just a fun time. Trisha Levenseller's books are such a fun time. So I absolutely love this. I read it in like a sitting and a half, basically, in Norway. Like I read this on the train. But yeah, like I just like ate it up like a confection because it's so much fun. And so yeah, I think I rated it like 4.5 stars, maybe even 5 stars. I might have rated this one 5 stars. Okay, so the last one is Morbidly Yours by, I think it's by Ivy Fairbanks. And so this one is about a young woman who, she's a recent widow and has been a widow, I think, for a year. And so she goes to Ireland for a short time. She's an animator. And so she goes to this small studio in Ireland to work on a short film, a short animated film about Grace O'Malley, a pirate royalty, actually. She moves in next door to a funeral home, like the mortician, basically. And he's this absolutely shy guy who is and has inherited the family business from his grandfather. So he also like dresses like his grandfather because he's basically a recluse and he's very awkward and doesn't go out and socialize and everything. And apparently that really bothered his grandfather, because his grandfather left a caveat in his will that said he would love to basically bequeath this entire business to his grandson, but he has to be married in order to receive it. And so he only has like 6 months left to find a wife before he loses everything, in which case it legally belongs to his dad, and his dad is looking to like sell the business to a third party, essentially. So while our female main character has just moved into town and she's only staying for a year and she has like completely sworn off love, it's not that she's there to like get over her husband. She's just still at the tail end of the grieving process. She's just trying to move forward with her life, but she's absolutely not looking to build anything, especially not in Ireland. She's also from Texas, which is a like critical part of her character. So I didn't love this one. I thought it was too, I don't even know. I thought it was too something. I'm not charmed by Ireland any more than I am charmed by Texas, which probably was that I think plays a critical role. Anyway, it was cute though, and I think that just because I didn't like it, that is not necessarily a criticism against the book. It really isn't. I think there's going to be a lot of people who enjoy it. I think people who like Emily Henry books would enjoy this book a lot. It has, because Emily Henry books are similar. They're kind of like a little bittersweet in places. They focus a little bit more, they're a little more realistic in terms of like how people relate to each other and how attraction builds and can build over time. So it's just like looking at it with more of like a realistic lens to it. So in that way, I still recommend it. I thought it was cute. It wasn't one of my favorites for all the reasons that I said before, but it's still a recommend. So that was like 10 romances that I read this summer that I thought were adorable and sweet, that I would recommend. You know, I read a lot more romances this summer for sure, but those are the ones that I recommend that I think are going to have the biggest appeal, the widest appeal, and so yeah, I recommend them. So have you read any of those 10? And if you have, let me know below, especially if you've read Blackhearts or Black Souls by Nicole Casterman. I've got to find my people. Where are my pirate romance people? Because we have to connect. We have to talk. If you haven't read any of these books, have you read any romances this summer? Like any of any kind? Even if you read cozy romances, tell me about them. Like just talk at me about books. I want to hear all your bookish thoughts. So that's it for me today. Thank God, because it's nighttime and I got to even see, I need to see what this video looks like. What does it look like? What's the vibe of the new camera? You know, I only have 14 days to return it, so I better jump on editing like now. So take care, drink your water, fight fascism, and happy reading.